Hello, this is the news on NTAi International reaching you from Abuja. I am Dennis Adegunloye. Thanks for joining us. Let's begin with the headlines. 34th Arab League Summit kicks off in Baghdad with leaders calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. National Orientation Agency intensifies campaign on salt consumption as countries mark World Hypertension Day. And President Tinubu arrives Rome ahead of Sunday's solemn mass marking the beginning of the pontificate of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV. And let's begin in Rome, where President Bola Tinubu has arrived, the capital of Italy, for Sunday's solemn mass marking the beginning of the pontificate of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV, the 267th Bishop of Rome and the new leader of the Roman Catholic Church. The presidential airplane landed at the Mario del Bernardo Military Airport, Rome, at about 6 p.m. local time this Saturday evening. The president was received on arrival by a representative of the Vatican, Federico Matticardi. Presidential Advisor on Information and Strategy, Bayo Nanuga, revealed the personal invitation from the new Pope to the Nigerian leader. In the invitation, Pope Leo XIV underscored the need for President Tinubu's physical presence at this moment of particular importance for the Catholic Church and the world, afflicted by many tensions and conflicts. Pope Leo XIV, formerly Cardinal Robert Francis Prevost, will be formally installed to the exalted office on Sunday. President Tinubu will join other world leaders at the event. The 34th Arab League Summit has kicked off in Baghdad, Iraq, with leaders calling for a ceasefire in Gaza. Francis Udojo has details.
United Nations Chief Antonio Guterres, as well as Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, were among leaders in attendance at the 34th Arab League Summit in Baghdad. Leaders at the summit were received by both the Iraqi Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani and Iraqi Foreign Minister Fuad Hussein. At the meeting, Antonio Guterres called for a permanent and immediate ceasefire in Gaza after Israel announced early stages of an intensified operation on the besieged Palestinian territory. "We need a permanent ceasefire now," Guterres said. Also speaking at the event, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi urged his American counterpart Donald Trump to apply pressure for a Gaza ceasefire. Iraq Prime Minister Mohammed Shia al-Sudani, whose country is hosting the Arab League Summit, says his country will provide $40 million for the reconstruction of Lebanon and Gaza after wars with Israel. Meanwhile, several thousands of people took to the streets in Libya's capital, Tripoli, to protest the government's handling of deadly fighting between armed groups under Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dibeiba, whose resignation they demanded. Ahead of the demonstration, the UN support mission in Libya had underlined citizens' right to peaceful protest and warned against any escalation of violence. The country is split between a UN-recognized government in Tripoli, led by Prime Minister Abdulhamid Dibeiba, and a rival administration in the east controlled by the family of military strongman Khalifa Haftar. The violence in Tripoli was sparked by the killing of Abdel Ghani al-Kikli ahead of the Support and Stability Apparatus SSA faction by the Dibeiba-aligned 444 Brigade. Francis Udojo, NTAi News.
Francis Udojo also reports that the Tigray's People Liberation Front has denounced the withdrawal of its political party status by the Electoral Commission. It made this known in a letter to the chairperson of the African Union Commission after it lost its status as a political party.
Ethiopian opposition party Tigray People's Liberation Front TPLF says the ban on its activities by the country's Electoral Commission constitutes a serious threat to peace process in Ethiopia. The party, which ruled Ethiopia from 1991 to 2018, has been plagued by internal conflicts and has strained relations with Abiy Ahmed's government. The party says the ban puts the 2022 peace deal that ended 2 years of conflict in the northern Tigray region at risk. In November 2022, members of the TPLF signed a peace agreement in Pretoria, South Africa, with representatives of the federal government. The conflict saw Ethiopian federal forces supported by local militias and the Eritrean army pitted against TPLF rebels. Authorities in Addis Ababa placed Tigray under lock and key, and humanitarian aid was blocked. Tens of thousands of people were killed, while millions were forced to leave their homes. Francis Udojo, NTAi News.
In the meantime, Russian negotiators at peace talks in Istanbul have demanded Ukraine pull its troops out of all the Ukrainian regions claimed by Moscow before they would agree to any ceasefire. A senior Ukrainian official familiar with the talks told Reuters. That demand, along with others the Ukrainian officials said was made at Friday's talks, went going beyond the terms of a draft peace deal that the United States proposed last month after consultations with Moscow. The talks in Istanbul, the first direct contact between the two sides in 3 years, ended with an agreement for a prisoner exchange, but failed to agree to a ceasefire. At a briefing with reporters on Saturday, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said the discussions need to take place behind closed doors. The Federation Account Allocation Committee FAC at its May 2025 meeting shared a total sum of 1.681 trillion naira to the three tiers of governments as Federation allocation for the month of April 2025 from a gross total of 2.848 trillion naira. From the stated amounts, inclusive of gross statutory revenue, value-added tax, electronic money transfer levy and exchange difference, the federal government received 565.307 billion naira. The states received 556.741 billion naira. Local government councils got 406.627 billion naira, while oil-producing states received 152.553 billion naira as derivation. The communique issued by FAC at the end of the meeting indicated that the gross statutory revenue for April 2025 was 2.084 trillion naira, an increase of 365.595 billion naira from the previous month. VAT revenue also rose to 642.265 billion naira, up by 4.647 billion naira from March, with significant increases also recorded in petroleum profit tax, oil and gas royalty, VAT, EMTL, excise duty, import duty, and CET levies, while company income tax decreased. In other news, the federal government has flagged off a capacity building program tagged Skills to Wealth, aimed at training more than 1,000 youths in high-impact sectors, with a view to accessing entrepreneurial opportunities under the Renewed Hope initiative. Musa Toliat reports that the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction, Professor Nintawe Yilwatda, declared the training program opened in Lagos.
With abundant human and natural resources to take her place among the Committee of Nations, but socioeconomic challenges such as rising unemployment, infrastructure deficits, and skills gap hinder labor productivity. The launch of the Skill to Wealth program under the Renewed Hope initiative of the federal government is therefore intended to address the challenges militating against youth development, and it is expected to be launched across the 6 geopolitical zones of the country.
We are here not just to begin a training program, but to ignite a movement powered by young Nigerians who are hungry to learn, eager to grow, and ready to build a future that reflects their true potential.
The Skill to Wealth program is designed to serve as a catalyst for transformation, particularly for our youth, women, and vulnerable groups.
The 3-week program will empower youths in the Southwest with requisite skills in 3 identified sectors, which include agriculture, renewable energy, and automobile engineering.
Under the agri sector, we are looking at about nothing less than 54 participants that will be fully trained, change their mindset about food security, and makes them be their own boss.
Our youth are serious-minded young people. They are going to maximize the opportunity because it is going to be an intensive and a very detailed program.
The federal government is working with development partners in the organized private sector to actualize the Skills to Wealth program, which aligns with sustainable development goals in addressing poverty, hunger, education, gender equality, clean energy, sustainable communities, and partnerships.
The first phase of the program, we'll scale it up from now till the end of the year. So we're going to have more beneficiaries in different programs. All we want to do is to ensure that, before now you discover that most trainings takes maybe sometimes 2 days, 3 days, 1 week they're through. But this time around we're having a high intensity, we're camping them. They're staying in the camp over here for 3 weeks. And they're training from Monday to Saturday. So we have 8 hours of training every day. So that is a very high intensity training.
A greenhouse, automobile, and solar systems meant to support practical hands-on for the trainees were unveiled by the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Reduction. In Lagos, Musa Toliat, NTAi News.
To health matters now, and to ensure hypertension and other health challenges are reduced to the barest minimum, the National Orientation Agency is intensifying its campaign on the need for members of the public to cut down on the quantity of salt being consumed on a daily basis. The campaign is in line with the World Hypertension Day. Kenneth Nanin reports that the theme for the 2025 World Hypertension Day is measure your blood pressure accurately, control it, live longer.
As part of events to commemorate World Hypertension Day, the National Orientation Agency, in line with its mandate on public enlightenment, has flagged off a national campaign on sodium intake reduction, having identified too much consumption of salt as a major cause of hypertension. The agency, in collaboration with the Federal Ministry of Health and Social Welfare, is urging citizens to take precaution and be mindful of what they eat on a daily basis.
That tablespoon is what you need per day. Check your blood pressure regularly, even if you feel fine. Processed food, they contain a lot of salt and sugar, and we call them junks. They are not healthy. And apart from that, they have been documented to cause cancer and all those things. You can see in those days when they are talking of cancer, we will say they are not here in Nigeria. Our forefathers, they don't really, majority of them didn't have cancer because they eat and live healthy.
This initiative therefore aims to enlighten Nigerians on the health dangers of excessive salt consumption and to encourage healthier dietary habits that can prevent hypertension.
Here, regular medical check is being recommended for a healthy living. And to practicalize the Duty Care campaign, the agency is offering free medical services to the members of the public within the office area. The National Orientation Agency and its partner are also on the same page regarding implementation of health standards by relevant agencies and adherence to national guidelines by citizens. Kenneth Nanim, NTAi News.
Now speaking to us via Zoom from Lagos on the day is Bukola Lukemi-Odele, a nutrition and public health expert. You're welcome to NTAi International.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
What is the prevalence rates of hypertension in the country currently?
Presently in Nigeria, according to the World Health Organization, the prevalence of hypertension is at 36%, and that implies that about 3 or 4 in 10 persons are living with hypertension. So it's safe to say 3 in 10 or 1 in 3 persons are living with hypertension at the moment in Nigeria. Great. So hypertension is otherwise known as high blood pressure. And this is actually caused when a person consumes excessive sodium. In other words, when you take too much sodium in your diet, your blood pressure will be elevated. And the moment the blood pressure is elevated consistently over time, it results in high blood pressure, right? So high blood pressure is asymptomatic. In other words, you may have it and not know because it doesn't have any symptoms. You may not know you have it until you develop complications. In other words, like your blood pressure is said to be high when it hits anything higher than 140/90 millimeter mercury. So you may already have a high blood pressure and not know it until it hits about 180/120. Then you start having complications, you start having symptoms like headache, and then complications like stroke, heart attack, and just to mention kidney failure, just to mention a few of the associated risk factors.
All right. In the past, hypertension was generally associated with older people, but now it seems to be affecting both young and old. What would be your explanation to this?
Yeah, so hypertension generally, as I said earlier, is caused by elevated sodium in our diet. Before now, like you said, it was associated with older people, but now you have persons from the age of 30 to about 79 being the most vulnerable population at the moment. And that's actually because this present generation, in present times, people are beginning to live more on ultra-processed foods. Ultra-processed foods are industrially made foods that are high in sodium, salt, sugar, or saturated fat. People have shifted from consuming the traditional diets that are nutritious and prepared from scratch at home, to consuming convenient foods, which are majorly ultra-processed and industrially produced. So the major causes of hypertension, when people consume a lot of sodium in their diets, the major causes of sodium in the diet are salt, bouillon cubes, and ultra-processed foods such as noodles, amongst other foods that are high in sodium. So presently, nowadays, people no longer prepare their meals from scratch. Households no longer feed on adequate diets that are prepared from scratch at home with less salt. A lot of people now eat out at eateries, buy convenient foods or purchase, foods that are easy to make or foods that do not actually consume a lot of time to prepare. So the moment you start living on ultra-processed foods, before you know it, the sodium levels in your blood increases, and then you're down with hypertension, high blood pressure.
All right. So apart from reducing these industrially processed foods, what other words of advice can you give to people generally on how to minimize the risk of hypertension?
Yeah. So besides adopting a healthy diet, it's important to exercise regularly. It's also important to check your blood pressure regularly. Make sure that you measure it accurately, and then you monitor it. You take your medication as required, and then you just make sure that you take your medications as long as is expected. First and foremost, change your diet. Consume less salt. Consume less ultra-processed food. Next, exercise more often. And lastly, ensure that you always check or monitor your blood pressure and take your medication necessary, and as long as you expect it to take.
Very, very good advice. Bukola Olukemi-Odele, nutrition and public experts. Many thanks for your insights and advice. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, this is the news on NTAi International. We'll take a short break. More reports in a moment. Welcome back. The Nigerian economy is expected to attract 60 trillion naira through the active involvement of the youths in agriculture. This projection was made by NTAi, an international organization that conducted training for young farmers in Abuja. During his presentation, food systems specialist at NTAi Nigeria, Azubike Nokoye, highlighted that youth unemployment is alarmingly high at 53.4%, with over 50 million young Nigerians currently jobless. He argued that by supporting 40 million of these youth through the Nigerian Youth Agricultural Transformation Implementation Plan, substantial economic value could be generated. Salihu Mustafa.
GIZ, the German corporation, I would like to express our strong support for building an inclusive food system here in Nigeria, together with our partners, and a food system that sees young people engage and contribute.
And we are even saying, if only 5 million youths are engaged in agriculture and empowered, the financial value of taking advantage of the African Free Trade, Continental Free Trade Agreement, the AFCTA, will be about between $10 to $20 billion annually. So, I mean, it depends on the value chains and the export benefits.
The future lies in the hands of the younger generation. And that is why we are all gathered here today again, to make sure that some of these challenges, we sit with you, we hear your experience, and we can provide solutions on both sides so as to be able to achieve a more conducive and sustainable agricultural sector.
Let's turn our attention to electoral matters. INEC has published the personal particulars of the 16 candidates and their running mates in the November 8th Anambra State governorship election. A statement by INEC National Commissioner for Information, Sam Olumikan, appeals to Nigerians, especially aspirants who participated in the primaries, to scrutinize the documents. The final list of candidates will be published on 9th of June 2025, which is at least 150 days before the day of the election, in line with the provisions of the Electoral Act 2022. Now, professionalism and excellence are investments in long-term success and legacy. These values, which build reputations for dependability and mastery, are now at the heart of a new collaboration between the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations and the Nigeria Customs Service. Haman Jabani reports on how both institutions aim to embed these principles into their operations for national impact.
Striving for excellence complements professionalism by pushing boundaries and elevating outcomes. It is not merely about meeting expectations, but exceeding them through innovation, precision, and continuous improvement. This mindset of curiosity and resilience transforms challenges into opportunities to refine skills and deliver exceptional results. In the light of this vision, the Nigerian Customs Service and the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations FCT chapter have emphasized need for organizations to prioritize excellence, cultivate culture of growth, attract top talent, and inspire others to raise their standards. For the NCS spokesperson and the Nigerian Institute of Public Relations FCT chapter, in a competitive society, combining professionalism with excellence becomes a critical factor for navigating uncertainty, learning from setbacks, and maintaining composure in high-stake situations.
In corporate social responsibility, we are going to partner a lot. Now the NIPR FCT is focusing on catching them young, is focusing on bridging the gap between the academia and the industry, between theory and practice. And that is where I see you playing prominently, because you belong to both.
And every event we do, every design, branding, logo for events are created within the PR unit. We have those who do post-production, video, drone pilots, cinematographers, video editors, all within that unit. We don't outsource documentary, we produce everything in-house. So those are the things we do differently.
The two institutions have agreed to a mutually beneficial relationship to strengthen their respective mandates. Hamman Jabani, NTAi News.
Bit on sports, Crystal Palace has defeated Manchester City Football Club to win the FA Cup. They won by 1-0. Back home, Bielsa Queens beat Niger Rattles 4-1 in the Super 6 final to emerge Nigeria Women Football League champions. We'll bring you details in our subsequent bulletins. And before we go, let's get a quick look at Sunday's weather prospects. And that concludes the news on NTAi International at this time. Thanks for watching. I am Dennis Adigunloye.